The Appalachian Mountains rise from the earth like the fossilized spine of a creature long dead yet restless, their peaks softened by millennia of wind and rain, their valleys cradling secrets that hum beneath the soil like a pulse you can't quite place. They stretch across the eastern United States, a vast and ancient range that has borne witness to the passage of countless lives. Native tribes who revered their shadows, settlers who carved homes from their flanks, and drifters like me, men with no roots, drawn to their wild embrace. These mountains are a paradox, beautiful in their rugged expanse, yet shadowed by an unease that seeps into the bones of those who linger too long. Their forests of gnarled pine and stoic oak twist into hollows where sunlight falters, where the air grows thick with a stillness that feels alive, watchful. My name is Roy Grayson, and I've spent my 40-odd years wandering their edges. Cook in greasy diners, mechanic in dust-choked garages, trucker hauling loads through nights that never end. But it was in Hadleyville, a forgotten speck nestled deep in their folds, that I stumbled into a nightmare so profound it rewrote the map of my soul. It began on a Greyhound bus rattling through the Midwest, a purgatorial vessel of creaking metal and flickering lights that carried me from one nowhere to the next. I just left Albuquerque. A stint as a short-order cook ended by a brawl I'd rather not revisit, fists and broken bottles. The kind of mess that sends you packing with a duffel bag and a bruised ego. The bus was half empty, its passengers a gallery of tired faces lost in their own stories, the air stale with cigarette smoke and the faint tang of despair. I had no plan, no destination, just a vague pull northward, when my eyes caught on a crumpled flyer wedged into the seat beside me. The ink was smudged, but the words stood out. Help wanted, groundskeeper, Sullivan Estate, Hadleyville. Room and board provided. Apply in person. It wasn't poetry, nor was it ambition's call. Just a job, a roof, a chance to pause the endless drift. Hadleyville wasn't on any map I'd thumbed through, but when the bus shuddered to a stop at a crossroads framed by sagging power lines and a weathered sign pointing into the hills, I stepped off into a world that felt exhumed from time itself. Hadleyville greeted me with silence. A town of sagging clapboard houses, their paint peeling like old skin, and storefronts with cracked windows staring blankly at streets untraveled by anything but the wind. It sat cradled in the Appalachian's embrace, a relic of a past that had slipped through the cracks of progress, its edges dissolving into woods so dense they seemed to swallow the horizon. The Sullivan Estate loomed at the town's periphery, a Victorian mansion that must have once been a jewel, its spires and gables now a skeletal mockery of grandeur. Ivy clawed up its walls, choking the faded clapboard, while boarded windows gaped like blinded eyes. The gravel path crunched under my boots as I approached, the sound sharp against the stillness, and I called out, "Hello!" My voice hung in the air, unanswered, swallowed by the oppressive quiet. I knocked, the hollow thud echoing through the wood, and when no response came, I tested the handle. The door creaked open with a groan that seemed to sigh from the house itself, admitting me into a mausoleum of dust and memory. The interior was a cathedral of decay, air thick with the musk of mildew and the faint, sour bite of rot, dust motes swirling in the slivers of light that pierced the boarded windows like hesitant intruders. The foyer stretched into shadow, its once polished floor dulled by years of neglect, leading to rooms where wallpaper peeled in curls and furniture sagged under the weight of time. A chandelier hung crookedly overhead, its crystals dulled and dangling like broken teeth. I wandered deeper, my footsteps a muted drumbeat against the silence, past a parlor where a cracked mirror reflected nothing but darkness, into what might have been a dining room, its table shrouded in cobwebs. In the kitchen, I stopped. A soft rustling, like leaves skittering across stone, pricked my ears. I spun around, heart thudding, but there was only an old portrait on the wall. A stern man in antique garb, his eyes painted with an intensity that bored into me, unblinking, accusing. I shook it off as nerves, a trick of the mind in a place so steeped in abandonment, and set to work carving out a livable corner. Sweeping dust, hauling debris, claiming a small bedroom with a mattress that sagged but held. Days bled into a rhythm of labor, scrubbing grime from floors, prying boards from windows to let in reluctant light, coaxing a semblance of life into the ruin. It was hard, honest work, the kind that keeps the mind occupied, but it couldn't bury the unease that shadowed me. I'd catch flickers from the corner of my eye, a silhouette darting past a doorway, a curtain twitching in a room with no breeze. But when I turned, there was nothing, just the house settling into its own decay. Nights were worse. Sleep came in fits, fractured by dreams of clawing branches and eyes that glowed through the dark. I'd wake, sweat-soaked, to a silence so deep it felt like a presence pressing against the walls. Then, one midnight, a sound jolted me upright, a low, guttural rumble, not wind or beast, but something deeper, a vibration that sank into my marrow. I grabbed an old shotgun I'd found in the cellar, its barrel pitted with rust but heavy with promise, and crept to the window. Through the smeared glass, I saw it. A figure at the wood's edge, tall and broad-shouldered, its form swallowed by shadow save for the glint of eyes that caught the faint moonlight. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice cracking against the night's weight. It didn't flinch, just stood there, a sentinel of darkness, watching. My hands trembled as I aimed the shotgun and fired a warning shot skyward, the crack splitting the stillness like a thunderclap. For a moment, the figure wavered, its edges blurring as if it might dissolve. Then it turned and melted into the trees, leaving only the echo of my shot and the pounding of my heart. I didn't sleep that night, pacing the creaking floors, the shotgun a cold comfort in my grip. Dawn painted the world gray, and I ventured outside, breath fogging in the chill. Footprints marred the dirt, large, too large to be human, their edges deep and deliberate, trailing from the window to the woods before vanishing into the underbrush. They weren't bear or deer. They carried a weight, a purpose that defied nature. I followed them a few steps, the trees looming closer, their branches skeletal against the sky, but fear turned me back. In town, I sought answers. The locals were a wall of tight-lipped stares, their eyes darting away when I mentioned the estate, as if the name itself were a curse. Only Earl, a grizzled old-timer at the bar, spoke after a few whiskeys loosened his tongue. "You don't want to poke around them woods, son?" he rasped, his voice a gravelly whisper. "There's things out there, old things better left alone." I pressed him, and he leaned closer, breath sour with liquor. "Folks call it Bigfoot. Been sighted here since my granddaddy's time. People go missin' in them woods. Ain't natural." I laughed, a hollow sound that didn't reach my eyes, but his words lodged in me like a splinter, sharp and unyielding. That night, I set traps. Snares of wire and baited cages scavenged from the cellar, crude but functional, around the estate's perimeter. My hands shook as I worked, every rustle of leaves a jolt to my frayed nerves, the woods a dark sea pressing against the house. I finished as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in bruised purples, and retreated inside, shotgun close. Sleep eluded me until a crash tore through the night, metal screaming against metal. I stumbled outside, breath visible in the cold, and found a cage triggered, its door slammed shut. Inside thrashed something monstrous. Not Bigfoot, not any beast I'd imagined. It was a mass of matted fur, limbs long and sinewy, its face a grotesque mockery of humanity. Sharp teeth bared in a snarl, red eyes glowing with malevolent intent. It lunged against the bars, the cage buckling under its strength, and I stumbled back, the shotgun slipping in my sweaty grip. A howl erupted from the woods, answered by others near, too near. They were coming. I ran, slamming the door and piling furniture against it as snarls and scratches filled the night. The walls trembled under their assault, claws raking wood, glass shattering somewhere upstairs. For hours they tested the house, a relentless siege, until silence fell at dawn. A silence heavier than their cries, a void that swallowed hope. I crept outside, finding the traps twisted into ruin, the creature gone. I packed my bag, left Hadleyville on the first bus out, the town shrinking in the rearview as those red eyes burned in my mind. But they followed me years later in Montana, working at a motel. Guests vanished and the whispers returned. I went back into the woods, found a cave with strange markings and killed one. More came and I ran again. They're still out there, waiting. So, reader, if you felt those eyes on you, would you face them or flee? The caves that breathe, a descent into madness. The road has been my truest companion. A ribbon of cracked asphalt unspooling into the distance. A lifeline for a man who's never known stillness. I've driven rigs across the sunburnt plains of Texas, hauled timber through the misty Cascades, poured whiskey in New Orleans dives where the air was thick with smoke and secrets. But it was a summer in '95, guarding a research facility in the Pacific Northwest, that etched a terror into me I can't outrun. My name's Roy, same Roy, different shadow, and I took the job because it was easy money. Watch a concrete box in the woods, keep the gear safe, sip coffee through the night. Simple until the forest turned against me. The facility sat in a clearing hacked from a forest so dense it seemed to resent the intrusion, its trees towering and dark, their needles drinking the light until the ground was a perpetual dusk. My first nights were a quiet monotony. Crickets chirping in a steady chorus, leaves whispering in the breeze. The coffee pots hum a faint anchor in the small office where I thumbed through old field and stream magazines. I'd patrol the perimeter, flashlight beams slicing through the dark, boots crunching on pine needles, the isolation almost soothing after years of clamor. But by the third night, the woods began to speak. Not with wind or wildlife, but with footsteps, heavy and deliberate, circling the cabin like a predator sizing its prey. I stepped outside, flashlight in one hand, the other hovering near the revolver at my hip. "Hello," I called, feeling foolish, my voice swallowed by the trees. No answer, just the rustling growing louder, closer, until it stopped. A silence that pressed against my skull. I told myself it was a deer, a bear, something mundane, but the chill creeping up my spine whispered otherwise. Sleep came hard after that, fractured by the echo of those steps. On the fifth night, I found evidence. Claw marks gouged into the trees, deep and jagged. Not bear or cougar, but something larger, something wrong. Tracks stretched from the marks into the woods, big, deep, with a stride too long for anything I knew. They led to a clearing, and there, under a moon pale and thin, I saw it. A figure 8 feet tall, fur matted and dark, eyes glowing with a cold, alien intelligence. It turned its head, and our gazes locked. A moment of pure, primal terror that froze me where I stood. Then it was gone, vanishing into the trees with a grace that belied its size, leaving me trembling as I ran back to lock myself in. I called Sam, the buddy who'd hooked me up with the gig, voice shaking as I begged him to come see. "Man, there's something out here, something big." He laughed, a hollow sound through the static. "Bear, Roy, you're spooked." But I knew better. I set up an old camcorder from the office, rigging it outside, needing proof I wasn't unraveling. That night it returned. The monitor flickered as it moved through the trees, tall, sinewy, its face a distorted, almost human mask, eyes boring through the lens. I grabbed my gun, hands slick with sweat, and it stopped at the window staring. Time stretched, my finger twitching on the trigger. Then it fled, a shadow swallowed by the dark. Sam saw the tape the next day, his laughter dying as his face drained white. "We need to get out," he said, but the woods weren't done with us. That night, screams shredded the silence. Researchers from the facility, dragged into the trees by more of them. I fired, chased, saw their glowing eyes glint before they vanished, leaving blood and silence. We left, reported it, but the authorities called it a bear attack, dismissing the tape as grainy nonsense. The facility closed, the area cordoned off, but I know they're still there, watching from the shadows. What would you do with that tape, listener? Keep it as a secret burden, or show it to a world that might call you mad? The Black Pines, a ranger's reckoning. The forest has a way of stripping you bare, making you feel small yet essential, a speck in its vastness yet alive in its pulse. In '95, I was a ranger in Idaho's Black Pines, a wilderness where the trees stood like sentinels, their branches knitting a canopy that choked the light. My name's Cal, and I'd been a soldier, a trucker, a wanderer before that badge pinned me to those woods. The job was routine: patrol trails, douse campfires, guide lost souls back to safety. Then Rachel vanished, a hiker in her mid-20s, last seen heading into the pines. Her boyfriend's panic, eyes wide, voice breaking, sent me out with a pack, a .45, and a walkie-talkie into a silence that felt like a held breath. Her campsite was a slaughterhouse of ruin. Tent shredded, gear strewn across the pine needles, no sign of her. I radioed it in, static crackling back, and decided to camp there, the unease growing as night fell. Footsteps circled my fire, heavy, too heavy for a man, too deliberate for a beast. I gripped my gun, heart hammering, but saw nothing beyond the flickering light. Dawn revealed a body. Not Rachel's, another hiker, throat torn out, face locked in a scream. Hours later, I found a shack, ancient and crude, its door creaking as I pushed it open. Inside, Rachel huddled, alive but feral, clutching a knife. "He's coming," she rasped, and we ran, the footsteps closing in until a truck got us out. She'd seen it take her boyfriend, a massive, fur-clad thing with eyes that burned. The official word was bear, but I'd seen it too, and I quit, the pine's shadow haunting me still.